Okay, welcome back, everyone. We got to see 5 exciting games between Josh and Noah in the first part of my coverage. Now I have 2 games left, and they'll be between Jackson and Sid. So both sets were at 3 games to 2. Uh, Noah's leading 3 games to 2 over Josh, and we have Sid leading at 3 games to 2 over Jackson. And just look at that smile on Sid's face. He first took down Josh, and now he has a lead over Jackson, and he's off to a great start in this tournament, and 3 games away from winning the second match, but that is a long way to go. It's always exciting to shift between players, even though they all, except for Sid, have somewhat similar styles. When you have different matchups, you end up getting a different dynamic. Jackson has not been featured very much on stream because in round 1 they only had 2 quick blowout games. We saw a lot of Sid last night and earlier this morning, but now the audience will get to see more of Jackson, which is always exciting because one of the best players in the world. At one point, I believe he was ranked as high as 2nd in North America. And he's just checking, I think, a last thing on his phone, and I think we are right about to begin. We're a touch behind schedule. They're trying to play so many games in one day, Saturday being the day they plan to play the most. And for that reason, they've been playing with these 20-minute clocks. I think Jackson will have a bit of an edge in that regard over Sid, who's a bit more slow generally while playing, although I've played speed games against both of them, and they're both quite fast when they need to be, especially Jackson. I'm hoping they'll start soon. Glad to see 95 Horatio. Happy to see us back. Hope everyone took a few minutes to maybe go get a snack or use the bathroom or stretch. As nice as it is to watch Scrabble all day, it's also good to get up and get moving and get your blood flowing. I definitely plan to go for a walk after my commentary. I have 2 more games left. WTF hasn't gotten up, but he did say he has to leave at 5, so presumably he will have to get up in order to leave. Elderword took a break. He had a Kit Kat bar. I did not eat on my little break. I'm waiting for dinner after 2 more games. I had a big plate of eggs before the match. Yeah, Kit Kat wouldn't be my first choice, but a nice sugar burst will help keep the brain sharp for analyzing Sid and Jackson's game. And Elderword, being a defensive player, will hopefully get a lot out of watching someone like Sid play, who's modeled his game after the late, great David Gibson, who was frequently ranked as the highest rated player in this dictionary and passed a couple of years back. And Jackson's going first to let Sid shake things up, and then we will begin. I see Jackson has a bit of a mustache going. When he first came back from tree planting, he had a chin goatee. He told me he was trying out for Jafar in a local Aladdin production. Hashtag fake facts. Oh, definitely before the raisins. I don't even remember what Good and Plenty are. Were they sold in Canada? Are they candy or chocolate? Candy. Let's say get an A for Trank. No, he did get the U to go with the Q, so... Oh, sorry, Jackson's going first. So he had jog plus in plus, do we know what his other 2 tiles were? Because I don't see them. Keeping... Yeah, I don't know why he didn't play Jingo there. Doesn't even take an S. I'm just going to mark it as the 5 tiles, and hopefully after the game we can figure out what he had. Uh, no. Sid looks like he's setting up torque, leaving QURM that hopefully will do better with a couple tiles to fill in. Perhaps an I and an E would be something to balance out that rack. Players might consider exchanging here. I think Jackson's looking to see if the board is facing the right way. It is his job here to be flipping it for us. Hopefully he'll remember. Oh, a licorice candy. Okay. I like anise flavored candies. I think Josh is just going to come in to help Jackson with this board issue, just to make sure he knows how to rotate the board would be my guess. There we go. I don't know where Jackson's other tiles are. I guess he never put them onto his rack. Hopefully this delay won't be too long. It does seem to be about flipping the board. He's clearly able to, so I'm not quite sure what their issue is. He might be setting up one of the rack cameras. We can take a moment to admire Jackson's swordfish tattoo on his forearm. He's had a little tree on his finger for a while. I think the swordfish has been gotten within the last year. I don't remember it from before COVID. I did see him, when did I last see him? Before I moved to Montreal. It must have already been about 8 or 10 months, so it's possible he's gotten it since then. And he's got a letter of some sort on his right bicep. An E, I think. That's a good tile. Always want to keep an E up your sleeve. I think Sid might have already made up his mind on what he plans to do. Um, he looked like he had set up torque. Yeah, corn for the U does look better. I was leaning toward an exchange, but I'm not sure what he's going to do. Corn, because of that U hook, I think would probably be a nice play. It does get blocked a lot. If the S were to be hooked, it might be hooked onto jogs, but to get to the double, it very often could be blocked. I think a lot of players exchange here. I think it's probably standard, but I hadn't considered that U-hook, which is a great point Kenji has brought up in the chat. So perhaps it's thinking about that. Perhaps He wants the play to restart so he can just put his play down. Yeah. Yeah, the front hooks, it's not just scorn, but it's also acorn. And anything down through the N will obscure cornu enough to block your Q from going down. If you exchange Kenji, what would you be leaving here from TRC and QRU? Are you just leaving something like RN? RT? Okay. I think some players have the tendency to keep QU because it goes together nicely, but I wouldn't here. I'd be leaving the bingo tiles as well if I were exchanging early in the game. The T is not a great tile, but it does go really nicely with the R, so that makes a lot of sense. Uh, rock, it's not something I'd really look at. Your tiles just wouldn't fit really nicely with the board after rock. So even though Sid's a defensive player and he likes to close things up, with what he's leaving, those 5 tiles, Q, U, R, N, T, I don't see that being nice with rock. But it is something to consider. It's too bad he doesn't have a Q play here, because if he had anything where he could play the Q, like if that was Jig, he could play Sank, CINQ, or Quirt or Quint or whatever, and he would be playing some sort of a Q play instead of exchanging. But because he has to keep the Q, yeah, Quackle's not going to like rock at all. And you don't have to play like Quackle. A lot of good players don't. But it's not a play I'd look to make. Rock would take a front hook of a C for croc, like a crocodile, back hook of K or S. Sid's had time to think. Let's see if he's ready to play something instantly. He's still thinking, so he's gonna exchange, but he'll keep the C as well. You can keep 3 consonant leaves when they are strong consonants. I think RT is better than CRT, but I don't think that's a huge mistake. Was there no N? I thought there was an N. I don't want to fall behind, so I'm just going to enter it as I had it. Does Jackson, is his 7th tile there a blank? That's what it's looking like to me. If it is, we can't really see his rack at the moment, but I saw it. It was build with a blank, which would, in that same order, you could play something like billowed. Yeah, like he's been working on that rack camera specifically. I think Josh has come back to check on it. Uh, we still can't see it. I don't know if Josh realizes. They really should probably be pausing the clock if they're doing adjustments. No, churro. They've had some problems having Jackson's rack camera aligned, so we've had a bit of a delay, so you took a good time to take a break. Yeah, it looks like whatever tape he's using is just not strong enough, but I did see for sure it is that blank, so billowed is probably coming down. Um, oh, Quackle has a fun word with the X instead of the W. Would people have found that one? I'll put the alphagram. Already given away billowed. This would not be what I'd say is a common word. Without the ed ending, perhaps more common. So at least both players have had time on their clock when everything's been paused to think, so that sort of helps even it out. Sid had a lot of time to think about his first play, and now Jackson will have a lot of time to think about his second play. Yeah, maybe between coffee mugs. We had used paper towel rolls and a clip, I think. He's been working really hard to get everything right. It's frustrating to have these delays for the players as well, but hopefully by the end of the tournament and going forwards, things will be smoother as the kinks get worked out. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. I think Josh is going to be happy when he looks at the camera now. Okay, I think they're going to resume. We know what Jackson has. Sid should be restarting his clock. Jackson's... Oh, someone did. Okay, excuse me. Um, Blame the coat. Always blame the coat. And yeah, he found the more common of the bingos, and it also scores 3 more points. So nice job on Jackson by finding his best play. Hello, a chess person. I hope Josh saw your comment, but he's going to be going back to his game in the other room. So Bollocks was the other bingo churro. Bollocks is referring to a male body part, and let's see what definition Scrabble Kitty's bot gives it. Okay, to mess things up, that is a much cleaner definition than I was maybe thinking. Sid only has 1 vowel. One nice thing about watching Sid's game is he does arrange his tiles in a way to sort of let us know what he's thinking. The other players haven't been playing in such a manner. It's not necessarily important for him to do that, but it does help us, so thank you to Sid. Does he have a double-double through the eye? That would be where I would be looking first. That would be the highest scoring play if he does have one. I am not seeing it. And now that I look at Quackle, it's confirming that none is available, so he's going to have to look at his lower scoring options, with his highest scoring option being 18 points for either Bronc, which takes it back O or S hook, or Nordic. Yeah, so strategy is talking more about higher level analysis, about the top left quadrant. I guess that he's thinking that Jackson can close the board quickly and Sid's going to want to keep things open behind here. Yeah, it's more than just making an equity play here, but you do want to be creating lanes. I wonder, but you also don't want to be keeping too many consonants. I don't know what I'd be playing here. It looks like, yeah, he will be opening the top left, so I think strategy's going to like that play. Leaving DT seems reasonable. Jackson is close to plays like a quiver. Doesn't quite have them. Oh, I think he's setting up quasi. That would fit beneath core 10. And that's going to score nicely with the Q tripling. I'm not seeing what else he'd really be considering here. I guess souk and jogs would be another option that would score nicely, or cheese and jogs, but the U would be better to get rid of. Um, Burka, if you want to keep the S, I guess, is an option. Yeah, the problem with Nordic for sure is that C hanging there gets rid of the lane down from the B or the L, whereas the N hanging where it does still allows plays to go down from the B or the L. So by just reading the top equity plays on Quackle, I wasn't giving you guys a good example of what should really be played. By hanging that N there beneath billowed, N's take a lot of front and back hooks, which will allow that part of the board to be accessed. So we'll see souk come down here. Leaving Ver as a leave, as opposed to Quasi leaving RV. So Ver is a bit more balanced. They scored approximately the same. Sid is still looking at vowels. He's got audio plus it. Cortin does take an A for Cortina. It's not going to really come into play on this turn, but something to keep in mind. He's close to plays like autocoid, but that's not going to work. Audition if he had an N. He does have two eyes, so he can use one of them to underlap Q to form Chi, QI, a life force, and then look to go across, although he doesn't seem to have any good parallel plays there. He could play Idiot if he were to parallel below, or Iota. But he's going in a different direction. He's going to play Quowit, which does take an S, which he doesn't have. Jackson doesn't have. He doesn't know that. So it's an aggressive play. It's not the sort of play we're used to seeing Sid make. Had a very good tournament, and he seems to have done it in part by altering his style. I wonder if it's caught his opponents off guard. Being behind so much, opening up lanes and floaters seems reasonable. It's just not the sort of play Sid would normally be making. I would love to hear strategy, how you think Sid's changed his style. I definitely have noticed it. He didn't mention anything about a changed approach, so I'm very glad that he's made the changes. I found one thing with Sid is he plays really well defensively when he's ahead, but sometimes even when he's behind, he'll get really defensive instead of looking to open lanes. Here he's drawn into a natural 7, which I'm not sure if there's going to be a spot for it. We'll have to see what Jackson plays. Unfortunately, Jackson's tiles have fallen out of view once again. So I did write it down before the camera got moved. So it's Harry plus EV. So on this turn, at least, we're going to have an idea of what he has. I don't want to interrupt Josh to let him know, because we're already behind schedule. So I think we're going to just hope that Jackson notices and is able to make an adjustment. Okay, Josh is aware. Okay, fixing it later is fine. And he plays Vichy. Okay. That is a region. I would like to see what the definition is here. I seem to have this problem where I pick the wrong word when I'm typing, which as an editor is something I really shouldn't be doing. Oh, look, Jackson's rack is back in play, which is nice. We can see it. He has drawn 3 E's. Sid has been given a lane for air radio, so that's going to come quickly. He had it lined up before there was even a spot for it. Here's the definition for Vichy. Type of mineral water, that's not what I was expecting. Jackson remembered to flip the board, but at the wrong time. Do we remember what he had? I know a Y and 3 E's and an A. Does anyone remember the rest? An R maybe? Yeah, okay. So we have his rack this turn. He does have yin above a radio. It's not going to quite make it to the double word score, but it will score well. Um, he would be holding the R as a hook to ya, Rya, R-Y-A. It could also take a P front hook there. So that could be a nice option. Oh, and looking at Sid's rack, he's drawn into another natural bingo that right now will play above a radio. Um, so if Jackson doesn't block there, we could see more fireworks from Sid, and that early deficit could be erased quite quickly. If he does play my suggestion of yin, that being he being Jackson, urethra would still fit above the A and the E of a radio. Yeah, at the moment, Sid's bingo is only fitting in one spot. Depending on what Jackson does, that could change. Missing a bingo, having a bingo that only plays in one spot, the difference in value between hitting your bingo and whatever his next best play is going to be can be 40 or 50 points easily. Um, so if it isn't available there, it'll be a lot harder for him to claw back from this 53-point deficit plus whatever. Yeah, just Yi. Okay, it gives him an R hook on both spots. Sid is happy even though he's not showing much emotion. And for now we can see Jackson's rack, which is nice. I'm tempted to already enter urethra because I think we know where it'll be played unless we've missed a better lane. Jackson has Endear plus an O. And just as we thought, Sid will bingo there and take the lead. So don't get too discouraged when you're down by 100 early. That just means your opponent had early bingos or big plays, and maybe you'll get them a few turns later. Oh, is Jackson going to bingo right back? But he's still in the game, which it didn't feel like early. Jackson's going to have to look through the L for his bingo. And yeah, he finds it quickly. Finding the bingo is not hard. Being sure he wasn't missing a better one can be difficult, but he was confident there was nothing through the T or the I or from the B. Through the V, he would have had Endeavor if the V was in a different spot. No, nobody resigns that early, but people do get discouraged a lot quicker than they should be, and it can throw off their play style. Like, if you're down that big early, just keep making the right play. It's like in chess when you just want to keep developing. It's early, like, don't panic. Those are nice tiles for Sid. So all of a sudden, seeing both players draw into racks that are very enticing. Sid has a beautiful overlap available above urethra that can hit the double letter score and the triple word score. I first saw meets, but I'm seeing a better play now if he wants to get rid of that U. The play, I'll put it in the chat, of mots. Not a common word. It's just from the Scottish for malt. Somehow it's remained in the dictionary, even though to me it seems quite foreign or dated. I think he'll be looking at that spot on the board. The S hook also looks nice down low, but with all those overlaps, you really want to be looking there first. Players who have played speed games like these two have a really good ability to just know where on the board they should be looking. By playing a lot of faster games, it really gives you a nice innate sense of what part of the board you should be looking to score on or block from. Yeah, Mott's is great. Uh, Scoring 60 according to Quackle. And if he doesn't find it, his next best play, Mott's or Meats, would be 40. Perhaps he'd be scared if Mott takes an S, because Mon, M-A-U-N, does not, as far as I believe. Yeah, just the D, that's what I thought. But at the very least, hopefully he'll find Meats. It just scores so much more than his other options that nothing else can really even be considered. Like, he might be Elderword, but because it scores 60 points, and because Jackson could get a big play there next turn, you don't really want to be worried about the bottom. You sort of just have to go take the points, I would think. Sid is defensive, but being defensive means taking out the hotspots, and he has found it. One thing to consider is that we're about halfway through this game, and they're about halfway through their clocks, which might sound good, but as you get towards the end of the game, you need more time, because in the end game and the pre-end game, you have more information available, and so the turns become a lot more important and a lot more difficult to process. Nice job by Sid there, finding his best play, continuing his very strong tournament. Jackson had two S's, PDAFT. Does that sound right to people? It seems like we can see his rack until he flips the board, so I hope someone will help me in trying to keep an eye on his rack in the rare moments when it becomes available. And Sid starts with 4 vowels. He'll get that X, but a 5th vowel comes down. There are hotspots for the X next to the E and Oleander, I and Quoit, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'll get a definition in the chat. Next, a coin. Oh, it's a flat ring thrown in horseshoes. And that's why it is a verb to play that game. So yeah, I think I had Jackson's rack right. He plays fast. Where he played it still leaves him the S for the Oleander hook. He won't be able to bingo there, but he might be able to get a nice score, perhaps by placing his P on the multiplier. And he's also set up fasts, as in to not eat. He can't bingo hooking Oleander. He can bingo hooking fast, is what I was just starting to say. Maybe I'm missing something that Kenji. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's what I said. Those were where his multipliers were. So he will throw down the X. He is leaving 4 vowels, so it's going to take some work to get out of that rack. Did anyone see Jackson's rack? I did see ZOLP, I think. Maybe an N. Anyone? Okay, thank you, Kenji. I hope you'll keep an eye on that for me, because I am trying to do a lot at once. So with Zapdons, has spaz been removed from the dictionary? Yeah, it has. So my Quackle is still showing it as an option, which means I didn't update it after the slurs. He could play Zeta through that AI, but that would leave an easy Z response for Sid, so he might not want to do that. This is a deceptively hard turn. He does have a lot of high scoring options, but I'm not sure if any of them are that much clearly better than the others, which is going to make him think. He's going to play Diazo, which is nice because it doesn't take. Oh, it does take the hook. The Azito doesn't take the hook. He has the S though. Sid is looking at another natural bingo on his rack. He has been drawing sevens out of the bag. But on this case, I don't see anywhere where it would go. Yeah, it is the case S. There's one blank remaining. This is a nice board to have the S with Oleander, Diazo, and Air Radio, so Jackson will have options for it. He has a nice balanced rack there with man pets. And Sid's gonna have to decide, down 31, how he's gonna score while leaving a balanced rack. He's moved the tiles to form the word one over to the left. Let's see where he might be thinking of playing that. Perhaps beneath urethra to form rev. That would look reasonable. A nice way to score while still keeping a bingo leave. With a blank out and the board being somewhat open, he might be thinking he'll need a bingo at some point. One looks as good as anything else I'm seeing, and it'll come down now. So let's see, yeah, Jackson's rack, every time he flips it, goes out of view, but I did write it down beforehand. So you can see it in the top right corner in the Quackle screen, or P-A-M-E-N-T-S. He might want to hang on to that S being the case S. Case S meaning it's the last S in the bag, giving it more power, knowing that your opponent doesn't have the same tile, which means you can set it up for spots where only you can use it. But of course, with the blank unseen, the blank could be used in place of an S. If he looks to keep his S, okay, amp, again, setting up that S, he's really been keeping an eye on the tracking and knowing that by having the case S, even if Sid had the blank, it would make him, if he were to bingo with it there, the blank would have to be an S, and then it takes away a lot of the blank's power. He wouldn't be able to make it any tile he wanted. So very clever by Jackson. Unfortunately, he drew WVF, which is about as poorly as he could have drawn, and he can't be happy. Sid has a very promising looking rack, but he doesn't really have any lanes at the moment. I guess down from the B or down from the O. Without an S on this board, it will be very hard to bingo. I suppose across from the J, but that's not an easy spot. I wouldn't count on that. He does have the R to hook Ray, but he is down 40. He's going to really be thinking setting up a bingo here. Yeah, waif would be great for Jackson, keeping a nice bingo lead even with the V. What would people do if they're in Sid's position here? You're down 40, you're close to a bingo, you don't quite have one. You don't quite have a lane without the S, and with one S and one blank out of 22 unseen tiles, you might want to flip a few tiles to draw one of those very important tiles on this board. But playing longer can also take you away from your nice balanced rack that's close to a bingo. So these are the sort of thoughts that players will be having. There's not necessarily always a right answer in Scrabble, although there are often one play that will come up to the top and be clearly better for many reasons. But often a lot of plays can have similar value and it becomes sort of subjective. We can run our sims and see what the engine says, but it's always good to hear how players think out positions and what they're trying to set up and thinking about more than just this individual turn. Another very important consideration is that Sid is now under 5 minutes in clock. There are 22 tiles unseen, and he's going to want to save time for the end game. One of the things he was most worried about coming into this tournament was the shorter clock. He knew it was going to be very difficult for him, being perhaps the slowest player speed-wise in the tournament. Okay, Low sets up a new lane. So I was saying there was no lanes without an S, and now he could put a G at the front at least, which isn't a great tell at the start of bingo, but at least it's something. Now, if Wave comes down, that does kill the lane he just created. Do I have this right on Quackle? VWENNTS? Yeah, Royal's the consideration. It does play 4 tiles and score a bit. The L can start bingos. There's so much to consider in these positions. Oh no, I don't have his rack right because there's an F. I think it's this. VWEFNTS. So they're now 20 unseen to Jackson. Sid has found another natural 7, and this one would fit with Glow, the lane he just created. So a very clever play by Sid to create a new lane on a board that didn't look easy to create a lane, while keeping REING, which does have a lot of bingo potential. It made it so that the bingo was probably going to have to start with G, which was hard. He did find one. But the play Ray suggested of Waif would take that bingo out of the equation. So Jackson is up 27. He's also getting low on clock as he now dips beneath the 5-minute mark. He's begun to chew on his nails. And he's really looking through his tracking. So his tracking he's looking at what tiles are still unseen to him. If you play on a site like Woogles, it'll do it automatically. When you're in a tournament, you have to do it yourself. And if you're newer to tournaments especially, you can make a lot of mistakes, and that can really cost you, especially at the very end of the game when it's important to know precisely what tiles are available. This is the pool as from Jackson's perspective. So there are some nice things there, like the blank and E, N, L, R, for example. But there's also a lot of things that wouldn't necessarily lead to a bingo. There's only one R left. If he were to leave, okay, he's gonna take the points now. That, like he's been waiting on it. He drops the V instead of the W or the F. Could have played Fest, West, or Vest. The V is typically from a static position, the worst of the tiles, and he did choose to drop it. It does look pretty good. Sid is gonna get his bingo down, but look where that E is hanging. So even though Sid is now going to take a 2-point lead, Jackson will feel somewhat comfortable, especially when he looks down and sees that blank. Unfortunately, he already had a lot of clunkers, and now he has even more. So we tend to call these clunkers the higher scoring tiles that don't lead to bingos. They're good for scoring, but it's better to have 1 or 2 of them. It's not so good to have 4 of them, as in this case, 5 of them, excuse me, WWKFC. The C is not as clunky as the other ones, but combined with the other ones, it adds up. He's going to have to find a way to dump a few of them. A word like wick dumps 3 of them, but he might want to burn his blank here if he can. Yeah, I agree, Binac. This is not an easy decision. I think what he should play is burn the blank and play whack. W-A-C-K-E. The A would be the blank. It would be putting him up 50, and with the pool, I'm going to show the pool from his perspective. I think it's going to be enough to guarantee the victory. So he could play like also, it also gets rid of the C. You don't want to get C stuck late in the game. I haven't looked to see if there are C spots. If he doesn't see whack, or if he's not confident on this word, he could consider Kenaf, K-E-N-A-F, which I think he'll be confident on. You don't want to leave WWC, so I wouldn't recommend that. And to no one's surprise, Jackson does find his best play, and assuming he has marked that as an A, he is going to win this game. So now Sid is down 52 with no chance at bingoing. Jackson has F-I-I-N-W according to the unseen tiles in Quackle. So Sid's not going to be able to stick him with anything. So at this point, it's about maximizing spread, and Sid has 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes to try and figure out his best play here. Is there anything that goes down to the ZA? I don't think. Through the DE perhaps? Or maybe he just plays longer here. And he could play puling, that's a verb, P-U-L-I-N-G, forming up and puling. And by doing that, he'd be leaving BI, and he'd have plenty of spots to go out with it, such as bide, which would hit the double word score. So that's a way of, yeah, he could try biplex. That's very plausible, duplex and triplex, but okay, it looks like he's going to find puling. I think that's got to be his best play. Oh, there was also oiling available, but I think BI is going to score more next turn than BP, so I think puling looks right. Jackson has something like widen, but can he get rid of the W and the F? Wi-Fi hasn't yet been added. Wiki was. Yeah, they both played great, Elderword. We've seen consistently strong action. And the one roughest game I think we saw yet was one of Sid's, and yet he won it. So, yeah, there's widen. It blocks also bide. Oh, Biden would have been fun and controversial, although it's not a word. It's just a president. So now will Sid see his strongest out of buying. Again, it's playing through 2 tiles on the board. In this case, the NE from Corton and Oleander. And if he doesn't find that, there is a spot for buy for 10, which I guess would be above puling. Sid, yes, Churro. Jackson did get the blanks and the S's, but Sid drew a lot of natural bingos. They weren't always fitting, but he did have Air Radio, Urethra, and Greenie, all natural, all just pop onto his rack. So, okay, big is not his best play by any means, but it doesn't matter here. I have it as the final score, a win for Jackson to tie the set, 474 to 442. A very high scoring game with a lot of bingos. As Jackson points out, some strategic thoughts. So yeah, a lot of people when they're talking about tiles being even, the first thing they'll do is count blanks or count S's, but a lot of it is the tiles you draw and the times you draw them. So drawing a lot of natural bingos can be just as powerful as drawing the blanks, assuming you have a spot for them. Um, so yeah, Jackson did have those S's that let him consistently score big chunks. And he did bingo early with that blank. But Sid drew pretty well too. A lot of natural bingos and 3 of them that landed. Let's define a few of these last words for people. Fueling, Piazzo, I already checked whack, okay. Already forgot what it meant. Sid's gonna look on his phone to see if he missed bingos. After the tournament, he said he plans to watch this entire stream, so hello Sid. I hope you're enjoying my commentary. I asked Sid what I should say about him on the stream, and he said, um, even if you think someone's playing poorly, just make sure to sing their praises. So, Sid, you are playing excellently. But in all honesty, you have to be leading this tournament as the 4th seed, no doubt. Um, Josh is back at the computer fixing things, but from our end, that lag only lasted a couple seconds. If you can hear us, Josh, things are going great. We have one more game before I'm going to sign off. And the night shift will be handled by our own strategy, Kenji Matsumoto. If you haven't yet, check out Kenji's site, Breaking the Game. He'll have puzzles for you to do and a lot of different tools. You can learn so much. If you're new to the game, you should really buy his first book. It goes over all Scrabble strategy from a very understandable perspective. And if you're a bit more advanced, you can try his second book, which will start to go into some of these really high-end concepts that I've been trying to brush on, but oh, Churro has to leave, but at least she'll be here for all of my set. That's all that really counts. But hearing Kenji is great. He brings up sort of analyses on positions that I would never even think about, and a lot of people wouldn't think about, and it's really helpful to hear different perspectives. Even if you tend to play a different approach, it's good to know how somebody else thinks. You can't say that somebody else is wrong, at least until you've heard their views on it, and Kenji more often than not is right. He has a background in game theory. When he first started introducing all these terms and thought processes into Scrabble, they were very new, and before people like him revolutionized the strategy of the game, it wasn't near to this level, so we're all very indebted. Let it lag, Josh. Go update the score. We want to know what's going on. We do know, if we've been paying attention, that it's now 3-all in this series. Jackson and Sid are both trying to take a commanding 2-0 lead into match play, which would pretty much guarantee their tickets into the final round on Monday. Okay, let me save this last game instead of talking. Jackson, Sid, game 6. Okay, Sid will be going first. He could play something short like fat or pat. Can he get to the multiplier square with a 5-letter word. I don't see one yet. Looks like he's just thinking about fad. That seems like the obvious choice. The P being better to leave than the F because it's a better tile. It'll bingo more often. The F will score more on this turn. Yeah, and it will come down quickly. Considering they're only using 20-minute clocks, a slower player like Sid wants to be as careful as he can with the time and not waste time on an easier turn. Jackson has drawn that all-powerful Z, or the Z for you Americans watching. There's a word Zybet, and that would overlap all 3 of those tiles, leading to quite a big score. Quackle says it's 34. And Zybet takes an H, so he could play it down to the H. It would be safer in the sense of hooks, but I don't think he would play it that way. I'm glad Josh is having fun. It's a lot of work to organize an event like this, but at the end of the day, he's doing it for his enjoyment and our own. So thank you again to Josh. Jackson's going to save that Z and play Obe. ZITE can really go in a lot of good directions. Oh, Peter sounds terrible to me, but it's easy to say from my position. I've made many word gaffes in the stream already. I'm sure Noah was very quick to challenge that one. And welcome back to Psy Adam. What does Psy stand for? So Sid has that Q. I don't see any way to drop it. And that's frustrating because with that rack, you really want to get rid of the Q as quickly as you can. He might have to play something like pen pick, but that would set up, no, it wouldn't set up his Q, excuse me. He's going to exchange, that's also reasonable. There wasn't much going for him there, so he's going to exchange down to the ED, which is the only exchange you could make, in my estimation. Yeah, I agree strategy. Zybet looked like a better play to me, but Jackson didn't get punished, but he did draw IEU, so maybe he's wishing he had taken the points last turn. I'm sure he was hoping for Sid to open something more to play through here. Yeah, Josh has mentioned that story about Zainab. I think that was, yeah, duplicate. And it was all about who was going to be sleeping on a bunk bed versus a couch. And Jackson will now exchange. He will hang on to that Z. Some players might not in the situation, but he's hoping it'll score big for him. Sid is not the sort of player to give spots back, but hanging on to it still seems reasonable. Yeah, the T is more surprising. ZET is not exactly exciting. I would think TE or ZE would seem much more reasonable. Sid is close to a bingo. Having a 6-letter word emerged, but I'm not seeing anything. Briefly interested in psychology. Well, sometimes you can be briefly interested in something, but you make it your screen name and it sticks with you for a long time. Psychology Adam, okay. I'll try and remember that for the rest of the stream, although this is the last game I will be commentating. I hope I've been doing a good job, and I hope everybody's been enjoying all of this content. Sid has set up Meg on his rack, I guess to play with Meh. Perhaps playing longer with merged, it would hang the R in the double lane, but it would score a lot more. REDT is good, but okay. Meg does come down. Hello, Josh. Why are you not playing your game? Are you done already? Am I more interested in Jeeps or placards? I hate my screen name of Jeep placard. I think it's ridiculous. I don't drive a Jeep, and I'm not the type to put up a sign. Um, the other anagrams of my name could be Jade Clapper. Perhaps I should have gone with that. Or, as Kenji once pointed out, Jade's Carpal, which is a lot closer to my name in order, just switching a P and an R around. Um, we are on Jackson's turn, and he's got a lot of nice tiles, the H, the Z, the M, the E, but do they all come together to form something that he can work with? He can definitely score. Above Meg, he could play something as easy as Haze or Maze. And he does have Haze lined up. Meg also takes the back A of Mega, but by doing that, he wouldn't be able to get as good of a score. He could play something like Zeta, but that would hang the Z in front of a double word score. He's not going to do that. Something like Fat, PHAT, if he wants to keep the Z for another turn, but I don't see that happening. So he's probably going to end up playing Haze, which gives back those Doctor's hooks, DRS. And Sid does have two of those tiles with the D and the R. Yeah, I agree, Elderword. I think Maze over Haze has a lot of consideration there. Um, H, the H does allow his T to form the above he, but the THP does seem to have more synergy than PMT. Oh, and right away, that is gonna get hit back for a bingo. Sid already sees his bingo. I guess he's just looking for a better one. Um, but lettered will be the only bingo. He has two places to play it, and he'll play it for more points, even being a defensive player, because it's just 9 more points, and the L is not that dangerous compared to other tiles. And even if it was, unless you had a read that Jackson has really strong tiles, you're going to take those 9 points. And Jackson does not have really strong tiles. He has some synergy with like that LY or ILY, but it's not the best leave I've ever seen. It looks tempting to play through either the L or the E of lettered. That's where my eye goes first. Also, I mentioned how he could become the, ag could become yag, so you could end a word with ty there. Oh, Quackle found impiety, which would be beautiful. I think the word pious came up on Churro's stream, meaning religious, and impiety would have a similar definition, the same root, the pi, so this would be a lack of piety. And Sid sees anti-weed being against marijuana, which is crazy because I'm Canadian and it's legal here and we love it. You could also play anti-pot. Neither word takes an S. A lot of those anti-words do not. Jackson can't be anti-weed with a haircut like that. But he is pro points. Yeah, I think Sid's given away a lot being on stream here. I think watching the stream, I noticed especially in yesterday's game, he often would leave his racks random, but as soon as he would find a bingo, he would then start to arrange them in order. And that seemed like a bit of a tell to me. And I think in watching his own stream, he'll be able to pick up on a couple of them as Jackson plays Milty. Looking through that L seemed natural. Impiety would have been a great find. I wonder if he saw it. Very easy to miss. Yeah, I agree. The React. I was saying how I appreciated that Sid has been arranging them for us. Um, he very likely could play differently live. Widen looks good because he left such a strong leave, and all of a sudden the action's going quite fast. Jackson continues to struggle with some ugly racks. In this case, he's got WBIILPR. Definitely not going to be a bingo. He just wants to get rid of one of those I's, definitely the W. The B would be nice to drop, but how is he going to do anything like that and still score reasonably at all? Where can his tiles hook? He doesn't have a hook to of, to he, to the M. He has an I, but he can't go any farther than that. So he's probably looking to play through the I or the E of widen maybe, and going down, but I don't see how he can make it anywhere. Let's see what Quackle has to say. Yeah, the top equity choice, top equity choices are all just dropping off one or two tiles, but leaving quite an ugly leave. So they suggest you can look at Quackle at the top right here, Pew, just dropping the P and the W, or Hazer dropping the R, Hazel dropping the L. None of them look appealing. You don't want to be leaving BIILPW. It's going to be a long time till you're in a good position after that. So I don't know what he's going to do. He could consider Burl and Loeb, I guess, BIRL, but that's going to leave WIP, which, as the acronym would say, that would be a work in progress, that leave. So if you're Jackson, chat, hit me up here. What do you do? Is he exchanging? It looks like he might be folding tiles backwards. Yeah, there's just nothing that looks very appealing. It was going to take him a couple turns to dig out of that, and so instead he said, I'm going to take the 0 points here, but hopefully I can draw into something I can work with. I think Burl was the best of the options I saw, and it was not very enticing. He's drawn an S, but he does have 3 A's, and he set up yeah very quickly. And Jackson drew poorly again, so not only did he score 0, but he's honestly at the point where he could consider an exchange again next turn, and that's a frustrating feeling. I, and that awful G. So yeah comes down. It would have been nice if he could have dropped one more A, but didn't look to be in the cards. So yeah looks reasonable to me. And Jackson is right back where he was before he exchanged, except now Sid has scored 17 points and cleaned up his rack a bit, presumably. If a P was in space, he could clean up that rack a bit with a very obscure word of whip pure. How many I's in the bag? 5. And Jackson exchanged again, just like I thought he might. Very frustrating draws for Jackson in this one. Can't say the draws have been even here. So Estancia, I see through the N. That's my first thought. And James Leong, I believe, was playing with that as his name on ISC. He won the national championship by speed playing players. One of the very top players, and he's Canadian, although he doesn't play much anymore. Are there better bingos? Let's see what Quackle has to say. Nope. This is kind of a funny word. It's not a normal letter pattern, but yeah, he will find it. It's very high prob, and he's been going over the high prob. This is well within his range. So Sid takes a big lead, and Jackson exchanged again, and is still not where he wants to be, having drawn 2 O's. Wanderoo, though, fits. Look at that. So let me enter his rack into Quackle. I hope he finds it. That is a fun word. Yeah, no problem for Jackson. Um, I think a one. Who is Wanderer 15? I think it's just someone who wanders around. Like a traveler, like Jackson, a wanderoo. Oh, it's a monkey. There you go. That's why you don't make assumptions, people. What did Sid do as I was blabbering? Did he... Oh, he just hasn't drawn his tiles yet. Okay, I thought I missed something. Okay, it's a bit of a funky rack, but it has potential. And very quickly he's going to play Vogie, which does not take an S. He didn't seem to spend much time on that. He flipped it and right away decided he was going to play that. He also had Coqui as an option, C-O-Q-U-I. I'm kind of surprised he spent so little time on that turn. Felt like there was at least more to consider. Yeah, strategy. It seems like he airballed it mainly because he didn't take long enough to think about it. He is a defensive player, and the V is very defensive. The C for Coqui would be just as defensive. Jackson is looking at junk, and by that I mean he has junk on his rack. The word, not a terrible rack per se, because he can score a lot here. But he seems to have set up jukes that would hang the J in front of the triple word score. It's not as dangerous as some players might think. Your opponent will often hit it down for, let's say, 39 points or so, but not every time. And I don't know what else he's supposed to do here. Like Koji, I guess, would be another option. Through the I, down to the I in Vogie, leaving L-U-N-S, it's not the best leaving it scores so much fewer. So Jukes, even though it hangs that J in front of a triple word score, looks good to me. Sid has a blank. We like the blank. U together goes nicely, but 4 consonants to match that is not what the doctor ordered. He can dump the Q for 31, and that's probably going to stay there a while. He can't go down from the J to the triple, I don't believe, unless he uses the blank, and he won't be doing that. Jackson drew the X, and a rack that's not quite balanced. Oh, Sid. I think Jackson might have seen that cue based on the way Sid fumbled the tile. If he did, that changes things a lot. The cue is the sort of tile you really don't want to be showing your opponent. I'd be thinking QI for 31, and yeah. Jackson can fit in racks, R-A-X, forming SAG and XI. He can also form jowl going down from the J. That takes away that J spot, and that X spot will probably be there for him next turn, whereas the J spot probably won't. So jowl looks much better, and it is quickly played. Nicely done by Jackson, and Sid is getting closer to a bingo. Confuser or something, if there were different tiles floating. Flounces, maybe? Is there any 7 there? Because he only has 1 vowel in his rack, if there was a 7, it would probably be a vowel, so he's going to start looking with the A, with the E, with the I, with the O. I don't think he's going to be finding something. But there is a spot to end bingos with an S, forming the word she. So he does have to do his due diligence, as we like to say. I don't think there's anything. Oh, there is. So Quackle has found it. And not only is there a bingo, but a very high scoring one. And it's using a suffix. So I was looking for sevens. I hadn't started really looking for eights, but hopefully Sid is. And if he does look for an eight on the highest scoring area of the board, hopefully he'll find the suffix of FUL. Will that help you guys be able to solve what the word could be? It is a harder one to find, so I don't think it looks like he's even considering bingos now. He looks like he's setting up kerf, which would be nice because he does have an S he could plop in front of it to form scurf. Yeah, it is a pretty common word. It is makeable, but sometimes players get in the position of thinking, looking down and not thinking they have a bingo, so they don't even think it through. Um, and now he's thinking maybe just fawn and keeping a 5-tile lead that's closer to bingoing. Um, so it's his thought process right now is either fawn leaving curs plus a blank or kerf leaving SN plus a blank. Kerf would score more, doubling that F 4 times. So he will just play fawn. The bingo was scornful. So that is a miss. Jackson has 3 ends, so Sid is still in a pretty good position. He's got a lead of 28. Jackson just waved over the board for some reason. I'm not quite sure. Oh, he overdrew. There was an overdraw. So what happens is Sid was drawing 2 tiles, but I think he pulled 3 out of the bag. So Jackson's able to look at the tiles and see which one he wants to throw into the bag. So this will spell out to Curdles. Sid will be happy. The overdraw rules are different if you've already mixed the tiles into your rack. Fortunately for Sid, he hadn't. By not mixing them into the rack, it didn't allow Jackson the chance to draw that blank and maybe throw the blank back into the bag. That would have been a game swinger for sure. So if you do overdraw, Sid will play Pox if you do that all day. Or Strategy will play Pox. Well, as long as you dox Josh, you can play whatever you want. Okay, so he's going to play racks for the points here. So as Strategy is actually paying attention to the game, I'm a turn behind, as usual. My apologies. It's hard to be doing so many things at once, but hope I'm getting better as we go. Nothing could be as bad as the first game where I had an echo going because I didn't mute my own Twitch feed, so apologies again for that. Thank you for sticking with me and for sticking with Josh's stream. A lot of hard work has been put into this event, and so far it's paying off by seeing such high-level Scrabble. Sid's about to throw down a bingo and take a nice lead. Yeah, Curdles is the only option here. Looking at Quackle, you could play it in 2 spots, but the lower scoring spot is beneath Ya. It is a bit more defensive in that it's not hanging out as much in space. The U in Curdles, if you play it to she, would allow a possible double-double, like a word starting with un. But it is 6 more points to play it to the left. We'll see what Sid does. He's very defensive, or at least that was his reputation coming into the tournament. He's been a lot less defensive so far this weekend, and it's really paid off. I think perhaps the old Sid might look to play a bit more defensively, but perhaps this placement will be very telling on the new Sid, as we will call him. And he is taking the... No, he's going defensive. Okay, with this lead and this late in the game, that does seem totally fine to me. 6 fewer points, but it's not allowing bingos through the U. The bingos through the C can still come, or from the C. Um, and it's easier to double bingos from the C. So both plays had their merit. I'm not surprised he picked this one. Um, Quackle actually got Jackson's rack right just by guessing. So that doesn't happen very often. That's just what Quackle assumed Jackson would have drawn into. I know he only played two, but normally, I think every single turn in this tournament I've had to reset the rack to what they've actually drawn. But this time, this is what Quackle had assigned him. Close to the word pontoon, but one too many N's and not enough O's, and I don't think there would be anywhere to play it anyways. He has O-N-T-O-N pushed over to the left. I'm not sure if that means anything or that's just how the tiles have sort of fallen. I'm not sure. I guess he could play... I'm not sure what that would be setting up. Now he's rearranging. Looking at con. Con would be nice because it gets rid of two N's. I'm going to put the whole pool and let you count, Elderword. This is the pool from Jackson's perspective. The constant vowel ratio changes depending on whose perspective we're looking from. No problem. Once you've counted, if you could share it with the chat, that would be great. I'll define this word con that we probably don't know. Steer a ship. Okay. Did not know that. But I did know the word. Sid has an ugly rack, and he will be looking to play defense. This is what he's made for. Even if he started to play a bit more offensively, this is the time anyone wants to be playing defense. Oh, Jackson drew a very French-Canadian word. He's in Montreal. And why not draw into that word? I'll see if people can find it. It's making me hungry. We're getting close to dinner time. And okay, that was the spot Jackson wanted to play it in. And he'll still have a spot to play it, but it won't be as powerful. So Sid's sort of blocky play and just clearing up his rack really paid off there. Thank you for giving us the distribution, Elderword. Jackson finds his bingo of poutine instantly, as I knew he would. It does hang, it does stop right in front of that double score. Will Sid draw the S? He'll only have 3 tiles here to maybe get an S. The game is now tied. So how about that? The final game I'll be calling him a real banger here, right down to the end. AAIV is not looking that promising, but it could be cleaned up, and R will help. Bavaria, okay. If it was capital word bingo, proper noun bingo would be a better way of phrasing that. We could play it. A region of Germany, the Bavarian region, like Munich. I was there many years ago. Jackson did draw that S that could go beneath poutine, although with only one vowel, I don't think that's what he's really thinking. Sid is looking at 13 unseen tiles. Because the game's so close, why don't I once again give you the pool. Yeah, Bavarian, I don't think, I guess I would walk to the challenge computer if it was a tournament, but I would know it wasn't good either. That just looks terrible. When you've been playing long enough, some words look plausible and some just don't. And that just looks bad. It doesn't look good singular, so it really wouldn't look good with the N. The adjective form, I guess it would be. I wonder what, like this is a really hard turn, and this is why you want to play quicker earlier in the game. The game's tied. It means so much right now. Sid's looking at a really appealing pool. Look at all those nice tiles, and he's probably thinking Jackson has a much nicer rack than he actually does. You see that blank, you see that S, you see the R, E, D, L, T, I. And he's just going to play Va. Very quickly. Good use of his clock. Um, Scores decently, 22. It leaves that routine has a lot of dangerous spots next to it. Next to that eye is a big scoring spot, but there aren't any high scoring tiles left. So it's not as dangerous as it would normally be. Uh, Girds, yeah, that's looking good. The nice thing about Girds is that there's no front hook to GI, so it's scoring, but it's not really giving Sid much back to do. Yeah, Vod didn't look good at all, and he played it quite quickly, and I know he's short on clock, but I think he wanted to play at least one more tile there. Um, Baria, was Baria an option last turn? Baria? Is that acceptable? My brain is feeling pretty fried. No, Baria is not good. Um, I was thinking barium, but I guess that's only pluralized with the S. So Jackson has grid plus RST. Girds, as suggested by Churro, is looking very nice, mainly because it gives back so little. Um, he's really looking through the pool. He's also scared of that unseen blank, but so by playing 5, he will be emptying the bag. Yeah, Shaken Not Stirred also doesn't like Vaw. It just doesn't. Sometimes plays don't look like the right play, and it looked non-standard. I hadn't found anything better. He wasn't a time crunch. I'd love to hear what other people think was a better play, because I'm sure there was something better. But it perhaps I like I said, I hadn't seen anything better. I'd like to stay on this current turn, but I want to hear more from the chat about what options perhaps we had all overlooked. Um, Binax thinking maybe Vaw wasn't terrible. I definitely don't think it was terrible. Like, all of us are discussing it and nobody's proposed a better play, so that alone is saying something. It at least scored 22, which is the margin right now between the two players. Although, okay, Jackson's changed up his mind. He's looking at drug now. Sid was anti-weed, but Jackson's okay with drug. I guess he didn't want to empty the bag. I think that is why he played that. If he played Girds, the bag was empty, and um, I don't think he really had a bingo to be afraid of after Gird. I guess ending in ST, spun and 2, perhaps that was a consideration. I don't remember exactly what the pool would have been from his perspective to know if that was a risk. It's hard to be considering both players' perspectives at once in such a time-pressured endgame here. Yeah, he is behind, because Sid has the advantage of having the turn. Um, so even when the scores feel even, not having it your turn changes the power of the actual score. But I was leaning towards Gerds. I didn't think even with the, how much did Gerds score? Let's see, 6, 7, 8, 22, 28, 29, 33 by my calculation, yeah. So to me that looked stronger, but oh, it's so hard to say. These are the positions you really want a lot of clock. With these 20-minute tournaments, we've seen a lot of players get into this time trouble near the end. Oh, and Wanderoo has joined us for the very end of my commentary. Welcome back, Will. Did a great job to start off the stream, and I'm sure you'll do a great job to end it. As we get later into the night and more people are free, we're seeing a lot more faces show up. We're up to 34 people watching this stream. We will be taking a short break after this game for the players to quickly eat, and then we'll be back with Kenji Matsumoto to call the night games. He's already been helping out a lot with comments in the chat. Sid does have some scoring options. One great idea is between Hayes and that S, he could stick an R, and by doing so, it leaves stuff like Aura, which scores quite a lot. But with the blank unseen, he's looking at what Jackson could potentially have, and he's scared of bingos. He thinks probably Jackson has an E, and it turns out Jackson doesn't. Um, so, is there going to be anything for Jackson without the E? This, it's looking promising. But from Sid's perspective, if the E's there, he's almost guaranteed to bingo. So Sid's really looking for some sort of a blocking play. You might see something forming BI and going downwards. Um, maybe just Boa or something. Sid can't take the time penalty here. The score is too close. Endgame timing means so much. That's why I was telling you to read Kenji's books. He really goes over these theories. And okay, he's going for a full blocking play. Very defensive. The Sid we know, Adobo, it's not scoring very much. It's only going to put him up 6, and if he can't go out in one next turn, it means he's going to lose. So, yeah, I'm with Joey here. I don't think emptying the bag is a problem there. It didn't look like anything was going to hit unless there was potentials for bingos ending in an ST down the second column, forming spun. Because it's been going so fast, I didn't have a time to look if anything was there, but to me, emptying the bag was fine. What an exciting finish we have here. Just under 3 minutes for Jackson. Sid's just under 1 minute. Jackson wants to play as fast as he can in order to pressure Sid, but Sid has an easier decision now with only 4 tiles left, so Jackson will probably use most of his clock. So Jackson will first be looking, does Sid have a way to go out in 2 different spots, or even 1 spot? Redia is being suggested in the chat, and that scores a lot. So if Jackson can't block there, Sid's going out for 2, 4, 6, 7, 21 points. And that would probably be enough to win. So Jackson's first play might have to be through the D, assuming he doesn't have a second out, he being Sid. I'm not seeing one yet. There's so much we're trying to keep track of. Sid can also score big with that Hazers spot, but he won't be able to go out, but I think it's about 31 points. Oh, he has Airy through Poutine. Okay, so he has 2 spots. That puts Jackson in a lot of trouble. How much is Poutine's Enlist, for example, going to score? Probably not enough to beat Redia. Okay, so he found the Hazel's spot. I was talking about Hazers, but Hazel's works just as well. And I'm now asking Quackle, and Quackle is saying the only win is if Jackson finds any play in that spot. That is just brilliant. Let's all give some claps and congratulations to Jackson for finding that spot under serious time pressure. That is a beautiful find. We had considered Hazel earlier, and yet, yeah, Sid right away knows this is his best lead, but it's not going to be enough. We might see a recount, but I think Quackle has it right. And it's going to be Jackson by 1 point. So let's give it up for Jackson for that crazy win. What a way to end my set of games. Wow. If he does not find that, he doesn't win. You can see he only has 1 minute on the clock. Sid's got to be kicking himself. So close to going up 4-3 in this set, and yet Jackson pulls out a Hail Mary to steal this game when it looked like Sid might have the slight edge. Adobo scored so little, but thinking that Jackson probably had the E, I totally see why he did it. It looked like a lot of bingos could potentially come down. Yeah, and thank you to Wanderer for the bits. A nice 100 bits to celebrate Jackson going up 4-3 in this series. Whoever wins the series will be up 2-0 and I believe have clinched their berth into the finals. Josh, yeah, I was just going to ask that. What happened in your last couple games with Noah? as we get a new sub in. Thank you, Mr. Kitty. And what a good choice of people to give it to. Shaken Not Stirred, who's been adding to this conversation and really um, making the stream more fun by contributing. Hello to Shaken Not Stirred and Fisheye, and lots of comments from lots of faces. Some we've already been talking to, some who look a bit newer. If you're lurking, come out and say hello. They are doing a recount. Hopefully that it doesn't take too long and that they realize quickly enough that it's right. Jackson has great math skills and he rarely miscounts a play, and he can go through a recount quicker than anyone. I'm sure Sid is just happy to let Jackson do the counting, and if he finds a problem, then he'll do a more serious recount. It would be nice if, knowing that we're watching by the computer, if we could just tell them that the score is right, but it is possible, I guess, I entered something wrong. The final score, Psychological Atom 1, is 4-4-1 for Jackson to 4-4-0 for Sid. So a very high scoring, very tight 1-point game that has Sid with his hand to his forehead, wondering why he couldn't just squeeze out 2 more points somewhere.